Welcome to Norwegian Newcomers, the podcast where you will hear fragments from the lives of Norway's immigrant population. And this is our very first episode. I'm excited and I really hope you'll enjoy. We have a homepage, norwegiannewcomers.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook. And we also have a Patreon page where you can support us and get episodes earlier than everyone else, plus some behind-the-scenes content. Today, my guest is Samson. Samson, welcome to our family.
Well, thanks for having me.
And thank you for being so positive from the very beginning about this, since we talked about this interview 3 days ago, and today here you are with us in our little home studio.
No.
So thank you. I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you for having me. I think this, like I said, this is an incredibly novel idea, and more than that, you definitely provide a platform for people like me to share bits of ourselves with Norway at large. So I think this is quite necessary almost.
Thank you very much. Oh, this is really, I hope this is a motivation speech for me. But for our listeners, at first or at the beginning, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Just to get something out the way first, don't let the accent fool you. I am not American at all. I am originally from Eritrea, or Eritrea, if you're feeling native. It is a small country on the Horn of Africa, just on the northeast coast of Africa. We are surrounded by Ethiopia, Sudan, Somalia, and other countries of that region. Eritrea, for all intents and purposes, is a magnificently beautiful country. We have a shoreline with the Red Sea. We have a very rich, vibrant culture. And if I had to say what I miss the most, aside from my family, of course, it would probably be the food. I mean, you can't beat that. I mean, Eritrean food, for me, it's, oh man, I think I would pretty much give up everything I own just to get a decent plate of injera and tsari, as we call it.
Do you have, are there some restaurants in Oslo where you can...
Wow, there were a few. I mean, you have to understand, Eritrea and neighboring Ethiopia, it's a lot like, I guess you could say, Norway and Sweden, in the sense that they're very similar but not identical. In our case, Eritrean, we pretty much have the same cuisine, just different names for it. So you could just as easily go to an Ethiopian restaurant and you'd get pretty much the same thing. Although I want to believe deep down that our food is slightly better. But to answer your question, Vendra, I don't know too many Eritrean restaurants here. There was an Ethiopian restaurant, I think it was in Santanshaugen, called Lalebello, but I'm not sure if it's still there anymore. Truth be told, and maybe this is a bit of a personal peeve, but I tend to prefer homemade Eritrean food. I mean, restaurants are great, but for me, maybe it's because I can give myself the illusion that it's made with love. But I much
that's true.
Yeah, I much prefer Eritrean food that I get from, I don't know, whenever I'm visiting relatives or friends and things like that.
But tell me, if I want to invite myself for a dinner and to try some special dish from Eritrea, what would you be? What can you make something?
Oh, me personally?
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, yes and no. And the reason for that is the backbone, or at least the basis for all Eritrean food, is a sourdough pancake. It's called, we call it injera. Mm-hmm. It serves as both it's kind of like a plate, but at the same time you can put all these stews and sauces and salads, and you break it apart, use that to grab a piece of these stews and just pop it into your mouth like a ball. The problem with that is to make the injera, it usually 3 to 5 days because there's a fermentation process involved. All I know is that there was a time where I almost lost the deposit on my apartment because of my inability to get rid of a stench that I made because of my attempt to try and make injera. I like to think myself as a decent cook, but injera has definitely been the one thing I can never make. I like to joke that Eritrean food is vegan friendly, in this, no, in the sense that another misperception a lot of people outside of Africa might have. Most people would assume that most African countries are predominantly Muslim, which is not the case. Eritrea, we are predominantly Christian, specifically Orthodox Christian, meaning we celebrate the same holidays as Norwegians, just on different days. Fun fact, we actually celebrate both, I guess you call it Catholic Christmas and Orthodox Christmas. So that's December 25th, and again on January 5th. So Christmas in Eritrea can actually get pretty lit sometimes. Where was I going with this? But yeah, so to answer your question, well, I will have to buy the injera. Thankfully, there are places in Drevland where you can actually buy injera, and depending on your taste, I can make you I guess I can call it a pseudo Eritrean sauce. I say pseudo because it's usually a very spicy stew with lots of paprika, but you definitely need homemade paprika that you can't get in the stores, and never mind never mind the spice that you get at the supermarket, because that's pretty weak. If anything, I would have to raid an Asian mat, try to get as many spices as I can from that, and just try to make you a decent sauce. I guess the reason I called it the vegan option is because Orthodox faith. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know the specifics of it, but it goes through periods of Lent where prior to Orthodox Easter, people will abstain from meat and meat byproducts for 40 days and 40 nights. So you pretty much just you spend a month and a half just pretty much living a vegan lifestyle. I can never do that. I got used to meat.
You're a meat lover, huh?
Oh hell yeah! I can't. I mean, my father used to tell me a story that when I was 6, I tried to beat up a grown man just to get a slice of pepperoni pizza.
Okay.
And I'm like, how in the hell did that happen? Apparently, when you're 6 years old, when somebody's sitting on a sofa and you just jump up and you're like a spider monkey, is what I've been told. And my dad thought it was cute. My mom didn't think so, and she showed me the hard way just how much she disapproved of my spider monkey ways.
Where are your parents now?
They're in Eritrea.
You have contact?
Oh yeah, we keep in touch. I call them from time to time. As worried as I am, I think they're just happy to have the kids out of the house.
Yeah, as many of them.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think they're having their quote unquote second honeymoon.
But tell me, so how old you were when you moved to Norway, and why you moved to Norway?
Well, to put it mildly, Eritrea, like a lot of places in the world, had been going through, and in many ways still is going through, some instability, which made life there kind of hard. So my older brother and I, we fled Eritrea and we came to Norway as refugees. This was back in probably 8-9 years ago now. When we came to Norway, we came to Oslo, and I think we were settled in Porsgrunn, of all places. My brother and I spent a year and a half in Porsgrunn before we then got sent to a small town deep inside Telemark called Drevland I was there for about 3.5 years. Not the best place in the world, I'll admit, but it was an interesting experience.
Can you recall or?
Oh, definitely.
How did you feel? And
well, when I first came to Norway, I came here around Christmas, so I felt cold, which is no surprise. And even though the winters since then haven't been as cold as they were before, for an Eritrean boy from a subtropic country, it wasn't fun. I mean, it's definitely something that you have to get used to. For me, oddly enough, my issue has never really been the cold. It's the ice.
I feel you.
When I came to Norway, I already had a bad shoulder. I dislocated my shoulder for the first time when I was 5 years old. I don't even remember how that happened, but it happened. So since coming to Norway in 9-10 years now, I think I've had 8 shoulder dislocations. Every winter.
You are the champion.
No,
I thought
no.
I'm leading the score.
No. I mean, and this is not a game I want anyone to win.
What we can do about that?
Oh well, my friends always keep telling me. The one rule they always had when I was going to Norskurs. The one thing they would always say, they were like, "Do you want to learn and har du lyst til å lære norsk?" And they're like, "Do you want to learn Norwegian?" I'm like, "Yeah. What can I do?" Gå på ski, which means go skiing. And I'm like, what the hell kind of logic is that?
Yeah, I can see.
That's like me telling you, "Hey, do you want to learn Tigrinya? Eat sabhi." That makes no sense. Hey, do you want to learn? The Jamaican slang? Listen to reggae. That's absolutely insane.
But since you mentioned how it goes with the language, did you have the regular course or?
Well, I guess when people come here as refugees, they have to go through a 2-year program. So it's 200 hours of learning the Norwegian language, plus 50 hours about where you learn the Norwegian society. It's the Norwegian social studies. It's actually something I'm proud of. It was a 2-year program. I finished that in a year and a half. Made it up to, I guess you could say, a B1 level. But I didn't really continue after that. No, the reason for me was what usually happens, especially with a lot of refugees when they go through the Norskkurs, there are usually limited options in the sense that A, once they're done with the Norskkurs or once they've learned enough Norwegian, they could try and find work, although their options are usually limited, or they could go to school. But 9 times out of 10, because most refugees don't have their certificates, they would have to go back to Vedrana and just like pretty much start over from there. I was lucky in that sense. Depends. Now that I look at it, I don't know how lucky I might have been, but when I came here, I had already had my bachelor's degree from the University of Asmara. I managed to get that validated. So instead of going back to Vedrana and going through all that, I was able to bypass all that and just attend the University of Oslo and get my master's degree.
What are your studies?
Well, in Eritrea, I had a bachelor's degree in journalism and mass communication. And when I got my master's degree in Oslo was in Nordic media studies. So my ultimate goal was to get into copywriting and content writing. Because by nature, I'm a creative individual. I like to write. I have a lot of what I've done in the past. I mean, on my spare time has been a lot of songwriting and comedy writing. I actually started blogging relatively as soon as I came to Norway. I think I started blogging around 2012. My first blog, I called it "Man Under Destruction." No, the concept, the idea for that title came from the concept of muscle building. As you lift weights, you create micro tears in your muscles, and it's through rest and proper nutrition that these micro tears repair themselves. You develop and grow muscle. And the concept for me was, and the idea for me was that in order to develop myself in Norway on some levels, I had to destroy myself one painful day at a time. So that first blog that I still have, it's pretty much just me writing about my thoughts. It could be anything from whatever's going on at home to personal revelations that I've had to me openly talking about my fears. One of my favorite pieces has been writing about winter depression. Thankfully, that has never happened to me, but
okay.
Yeah, no, I still don't get me wrong. We're the lucky ones in the sense that for reasons that I cannot even begin to fathom, it hasn't hit us as hard as it has a lot of other people as well. Which is not to say that it won't. It's a coin toss. It's a coin toss. Excuse me. But yeah, so it was actually pretty interesting for me as well, because when I was living in Drevland, while attending the Norskkurs, they would always insist that we have these these work study programs or Norwegian internships, for lack of a better term. And they somehow found out, and I told them that I had some experience in journalism. So they asked me to be a contributing writer there. Naturally, I wouldn't be paid. And I said, yeah, sure. Give me something to do. Give me some work experience. And when they found out that I had a blog, they asked if they could attach that to the to the newspaper's website. And I saw that as kind of weird, but I figured, okay, why not? Because the thing for me, I have nothing against Drevland as a place. But having said that, I'm well aware that it's a small town with small town people who have small town sensibilities. So when something out of the ordinary pops up, it is not always well received.
They found that strange.
Oh, definitely.
Because they don't know. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I mean, and that's always been one of the things I have really. I've struggled. There was a time where I struggled to come to grips with the fact that people could be so apathetic towards each other, in the sense that these people did not know me, and for some reason there were days where it felt like they felt like I was less than human, and that actually really did mess me up to a point that when I came to Oslo, I was like a wounded animal.
That was the reason you didn't feel well there.
I didn't feel welcome.
And welcome. So that's why you wanted to move.
Well, yeah. And so when I got into Oslo University, I packed all my stuff and I just hopped on the first thing smoking. It was actually kind of interesting too, because my first day at Oslo University, I had this idea that it was going to be all work and no play. I used to tell people I was going to treat school like a bank robbery. Get in, get out, and nobody gets hurt. And my first day there, I have a conversation, which soon turned into an argument with a young lady at school who was from Yemen. And Yemen is a neighboring country, except it's across the Red Sea. But our countries have had a long and illustrious history with each other. No, mostly good. But the point of contention for us was over a small skirmish back in the late 90s between both Eritrea and Yemen over a handful of islands. It's I wouldn't call it a skirmish. It was more like, for lack of a better term, two siblings bickering over a toy. And which is not to say that it wasn't a serious situation. It could have easily have erupted into something else. Thankfully, it didn't. But she and I got into this argument. All I know is that she gave me this look, and for a second, I believed in the devil. I saw the devil in this woman's eyes, and I was like, okay, I'm going to die on the first day. I just hope that if they ask I just hope if they ask what happened to Samson, I just hope they tell them some like 5 skinheads beat him to death, as opposed to one tiny Yemeni woman. But long story short, this woman and her husband would eventually become two of my closest friends here in Oslo. I kid you not, all of my other friends that I have here in Oslo, I can trace back to them. It's kind of like a very unique family tree.
Yeah.
Only we're not related, and there's a good chance we're probably codependent and dysfunctional, but we're there for each other, so that's all that matters for me.
In your social life, you have friends from all over the world?
In Oslo, I would say the majority of my friends are Norwegians, which is a good and a bad thing. It is.
Why?
Oh, well, it's good because, one, it gives me a chance to practice my Norwegian. It allows me to learn more about the culture, things that I'm learning. I'm even 10 years later, I'm still learning new things about the culture. It allows me to learn more about the dialects, which I'm not going to lie is a killer. A lot of Norwegians I've met have told me, they've always made jokes about people from the north, especially people who speak the northern dialects. I'm not going to lie, I find the northern dialects to be quite fascinating to hear. I don't know why. I barely understand what they say, but on some levels, it
sounds good.
It's almost melodic.
Yeah.
But then again, I can give you an example of that as well. Arabic. In Eritrea, Tigrinya is the main language, but Arabic is also another official language that we have. Much like Norwegian, in Norway you have bokmål, nynorsk, and all these other dialects that are in between and a combination, right? It's the same thing with Arabic. Different culture, different parts of the Middle East and Northern Africa speak different versions of Arabic. If you go to Lebanon, which has had a lot of French influence, there is a combination of it's Arabic and French, and that, I guess you could say, the evolution of their native tongue that sort of gives it a very unique flavor, for lack of a better term. So going back to the original question, having Norwegian friends has been good in the sense that it has allowed me to practice the language, learn more about the country, and just expose myself to their culture and allow me to expose my culture to them. But at the same time, I miss Eritreans. I miss being able to talk to Eritreans. I miss having conversations in my language, even though.
Is it because you don't know anyone, or?
Oh no, I mean there are plenty of Eritreans here, but there haven't been any avenues where we can sort of meet up. We don't have meeting groups. I mean, we don't have meetups. It was just me and my brother when we came here. We never really had a way to sort of make inroads into the Eritrean community here in Oslo. Ultimately, it's not a question of I lack some social criteria or the Eritrean community haven't approved or accepted me. That's not the case. It just hasn't happened. It's just one of those enigmas, for lack of a better term. But it's one that I think about a lot, and at the same time, not so much. Ultimately, I just believe that it'll happen when it happens. Until then, I'm happy with the people I have in my life.
Are you missing home?
No. Without getting into too many details, home is a bit of a unique concept for me. I miss my family. I miss my parents. But I can't say I miss home. And the reason I can give is pretty much that home was in a very happy place. And that's for lack of a better term.
Do you feel Oslo is your home?
For the first time in a long time, I feel like I have a home, and it is Oslo. And it took a long time for me to realize that. I find that it's not so much the place, but it's the people around you. And yeah, I'm grateful for the people I have in my life, the people that have embraced me and accepted me, that have allowed me to accept them. Truth be told, I really can't imagine myself living anywhere else. And, at my age, I mean, I still have a few adventures left in me, but I might want to see parts of the world. I might want to have some more experiences. But when it's all said and done, Oslo is where I'm coming back to. When that next chapter of my life begins, where I can settle down and have a family, if Oslo's not the place, Oslo will be a fond memory that I can share with my children. So yeah, Oslo's home.
What is you like the most in Oslo?
It's familiar, and at the same time, it's easy to get lost. After 3 years in Drevland, it was very, very difficult to not stand out, and I didn't like that. I can give you an example. Drevland has one pub that's only open 2 nights a week, and I would choose to go there and just to sit by myself and have a drink. And it's not that I liked the bar or I liked the people there. I didn't like them and they didn't like me. But it was a lot better than sitting in my apartment drinking beers, drinking by myself, or turning on TV and having that as background noise. But then I always felt like when I walked into the bar, I was a target. I mean, I could literally feel people's eyes on me. So when I moved to Oslo, I was initially hyper alert about everything and anything around me. And by the end of the first day, just walking through the streets, I noticed that I didn't care. I mean, nobody cared. I mean, I'm like, okay, I'm a black guy walking through the streets of Oslo. Why aren't the people just staring at me and, looking at me or, being suspicious around me? And I realized because I wasn't the only black guy walking down the streets in Oslo. I like the idea that despite the fact that compared to most capital cities, Oslo is relatively small, it's still big enough to disappear. And After 3.5 years of small town living, I've come to love that hustle and bustle that comes with living in a city. I love waking up at the crack of dawn and, I don't know, just maneuvering my way from the bus to the subway to the tram just to get to work and back. I miss that grind. I mean, one of my first jobs in Oslo was, oddly enough, being a survey taker or an interviewer for Ruter, the main public transportation firm here in Oslo. So I was literally paid to ride public transportation. I thought was, it was fun. I did that to pay through college. At first, it was one of the best jobs I had, but then reality set in and things got hard. But that job showed me so much of Oslo. And I can honestly say one of my favorite places in all of Oslo would probably be a bus stop called Havnebakken. The reason for that is it is pretty much a bench on a hill that has a clear view all the way to Oslo's harbor. I have seen that. I've taken so many pictures of that bench, and I just can't help but think, oh my goodness, it is. It's a very tranquil place. So much so that
Sounds beautiful, yeah.
I actually wanted to write a letter to Ruter because they had this campaign where they were promoting like a person's favorite park bench. I'm like, that's the perfect spot. How is that not on one of Ruter's posters? Yeah. Why wasn't that part of the campaign? You missed an opportunity. But yeah, I'm not gonna evangelize Oslo in the sense that it's not heaven, but then home is not meant to be heaven. Home is home. Like any other aspect of life, you take the good with the bad. I've accepted the good. I've accepted the bad, and it allows me to embrace and enjoy the good.
So you wouldn't change anything?
I'd change a lot of things, but then well, I would encourage more hip hop. I'm a hip hop baby all the way, and I utterly resent the notion that hip hop can. I read something a long time ago where a lot of hip hop spots that used to play in Oslo were closing down because there's some notion that hip hop leads to criminality, which don't get it twisted. I'll be the first one to admit that, we sing and glorify and glamorize a lot of unseemly things and a lot of bad elements, but
that's also true.
That's true. I'm not.
What's happening.
Yeah, but then at the same time, it's no different than any other genre of music. The thing for me is when I hang out with my Norwegian friends, they're all metalheads. They're all into classic rock, and I got nothing against classic rock. Metal, Yeah. I'm not gonna disrespect any genre of music, but kind of like something I can dance to. At the same time, it has been one of those things for me. Music has always been that one thing that we agree to disagree upon. I know what I like. I stick to what I like. So I couldn't be a good DJ. Stand-up comedian, on the other hand, no, I definitely do a lot of that.
Did you have some stand-up comedian?
I did maybe one or two amateur shows in Drevland, but life caught up with me, so I never got a chance to sort of follow up on that. I actually, my New Year's resolution for 2020 had been do more stand-up, and then Corona hit. So yeah.
It will be stand-up.
Well, no, I stick to Instagram now, but I will tell you this much: my baby brother once gave me a quote that still rings true to this day. Robespierre, the French, was a poet, politician, or theologist, I forgot what he was. He said, "God is a comedian playing to an audience that's too afraid to laugh." And I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, no shit. I wanted to do stand-up comedy in 2020, and apparently all the spots are closed now. And I don't want to start it. And for me, somebody told me you could try and live stream it on Facebook. I can't do that.
It's not your thing, huh?
Well, no, it's not that it's not my thing. It's that for me,
you prefer it live?
Oh yeah, definitely. I feed off of that audience, that energy.
Feedback, yeah.
Oh, definitely. I love, and especially, I love picking on people. And I know it's counterintuitive. It's a bit antagonistic for me to say that I'm not a bully and then say I like picking on people. But I guess I like being provocative. I am intentionally provocative in many ways. Well, no, not many ways. On stage, I am the biggest not nice person on the planet. But that's part of my charm, especially when I'm telling jokes, and I love doing that. And that's the one thing I want to do when a lot of these restrictions are lifted. I want to get back to doing stand up.
Yeah, I
Hopefully,
wish you all the luck, and
knock on wood.
I'll come and
Okay.
be that audience feedback.
I don't want to offend you, but I will.
Okay,
Not-
okay. I'll be ready. How does your Sundays usually look? More often.
More often than not, it's me. It's my Sundays pretty much consist of me recovering from Saturday night. No, bad joke. My Sundays now, it's pretty much
Before Corona.
Oh well, before Corona. Believe it or not, Sunday is it's not a fasting day. It's my day. I devote that to God. Before Corona, I would attend church at St. Olav's Domkyrka in central Oslo. As I said, Eritrea is predominantly Orthodox Christian, but we do have various sects of Christianity, and I have been attending Catholic churches since I was 15. I like that church service because it's in English. It's very welcoming. It's very accepting. And much like with stand-up comedy, I love the energy that I feel in church. Whether it's in the middle of Mass or whether I'm just pop in just for a quick prayer. After Corona, it's pretty much me lighting candles in my room, holding my Bible, and just saying a prayer, confessing my sins. And I try to meditate. It's something that somebody suggested. And I find that it does help with my anxieties. For me, my Sundays pretty much, it consists of relaxation, prayer, meditation, and self-love, which I'm good at a lot of things. Loving myself, though, has not been one of them. And I'm still trying to figure out how I got to that point. But yeah, my Sundays is pretty much just me giving myself a chance to recover from the other 6 days.
Recharge.
Oh, definitely. It's not just even just recharge. I think it's also, I don't want to say glorify yourself, but I think more like where you sit down and say, you have done well. You've earned this day to rest. You've done a good job and you deserve to relax and be comfortable. I like waking up and knowing that, I don't have to get up. I don't have to do anything. But I choose to get up. I choose to do things. And I think for me, this was something I've had to learn how to break. When I was going to school, I was working 2 part-time jobs while going to school. And how this would work would be I would go to school from 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. And I had my first part-time job for Ruja, where I worked from 4 p.m. till 10 p.m. And I do that from Monday to Friday. And then Saturday and Sunday, every other weekend, I would have this other part-time job that I would do. And if I wasn't doing that, I would spend it in the reading hall at school, either working on assignments or writing my thesis. And I did that for 2 years. And I worked like that with this mantra feeling. I didn't really understand. I couldn't really articulate it. I couldn't put it into words. And it wasn't until like years after I graduated, I realized I was able to articulate that feeling. That was, I had to keep working. I had to put myself through stress. I couldn't, relaxation was the enemy. If I wasn't stressed, I wasn't being productive. And it wasn't until recently I realized how so damaging that is. The potential damage that could do to somebody.
You think that you did that to yourself, or the society and the things that are going fast and we all need to and struggling to have more jobs, or it was just the rhythm that you put yourself?
A little bit of both, actually.
Or
Well, one, that is the nature of the world. But then at the same time, in Eritrea, I was always the wonder kid. I got skipped a few grades. I graduated from high school relatively young. I graduated from college relatively young. And I always managed to excel. I was always that wonder kid. And then I came to Norway. And I found out that I was behind everybody else. I was around 31 when I started school, and I was going to school with kids that were about 22, 23. And on some levels, you could say, but you really can't compare yourself to these kids because these guys have had like what, a 10-year head start. You just came here, you barely managed to learn the language, and even though your study program was in English, it was a completely different structure. It was a completely different program. It was vastly different from what you're used to. So you can't hold yourself to the same standards that you used to. And logically, that made sense. But in my mind, I'm like, yeah, kill that noise. It's, you either sink or swim. So, you gotta keep at it. You gotta keep. So I worked harder than everybody else in school. Something I'm actually very proud of, in that out of most of my classmates, half of us turned in our master's theses within the allotted 2-year period, whereas quite a few would apply for extensions, which is fair. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that, and I'm not condemning these people. But I felt that applying for an extension would have been a personal failure. So I was proud of myself for being able to turn in my thesis on time within a 2-year period while holding down those 2 part-time jobs. But looking back, I think what killed me is that sense of me comparing myself to them, comparing myself to what I saw as their potential, a potential that I lacked. Because I felt like, I'm 31, I should have my life figured out by now. And somebody said something to me that still resonates with me to this day. The problem with comparing yourself to other people is that you tend to compare the worst aspects of yourself with the best aspects of other people. And 9 times out of 10, that is not a battle you can win. And don't get me wrong, despite realizing that, I still do that from time to time, but now I have a better sense of that. I realize that you have to pick a day to give your body rest. Otherwise, your body will pick that day for you. And oh, definitely. But I think that's a common theme with a lot of immigrants, and especially whether you're skilled labor or unskilled labor. We have to work twice as hard just to be, I don't want to say treated equally, but just to get as much. Professionally, I have close to 16 years of experience as a journalist, as a content and copywriter, and a handful of jobs I've done here and there. And I'm still hustling just to get internships. I'm still struggling to do something that I want. And before I came to this country, the idea of job satisfaction, that was just a joke to me. That's just something that white people made up just so they could justify why they hate their jobs. But then I realized, no, that's not really the case. I mean, I'm hardworking. I will take any job that I take. But then it doesn't mean that I shouldn't be happy with what I do. It doesn't mean that I shouldn't take pride in what I do. And as much as right now I work for kindergartens, and as much as I enjoy children, it doesn't give me that that sense of pride that I would get from writing blog posts for companies, or just finding ways to communicate with people, or doing stand-up. These things bring me joy. And I realized I have a right to feel these things. I think for me, I find it it's motivating and aggravating that, we have to work twice as hard just to get the things that we want. That no matter how many years you've lived here, you still feel that sense that you have something to prove. And if I had to be brutally honest, it will be a long time, if ever, before I reach that point in my life where, especially living in Oslo, where I don't feel that urge to have to prove something. I think part of me will always be struggling and fighting to prove things.
Do you think that will change now that Norway is getting more multicultural and diverse?
Well, there's that old saying, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And while that is the case, Norway is becoming more diverse, more multicultural, but then doesn't change the fact that 9 out of 10 Norwegian organizations will still prefer to hire Norwegians. One of my favorite things, especially when it comes to the job hunt, has been, and I'm being sarcastic when I say this, by the way, I've been told on more than one occasion, I've been rejected for quite a few jobs. I don't want to give you that number because it's just quite depressing. But on more than one occasion, the reason they cited for rejecting me for certain positions have been that the position requires a native English speaker. And truth be told, I went to international schools in Eritrea. I learned English before I learned my own language, which is not. I mean, and I'm not saying that with pride. I'm not proud of that. That's just it's just a fact. So, the idea of Norwegians questioning my comprehension of the English language, these are the things that give me plenty to talk about whenever I do stand up. Anyone that's seen my stand-up knows that the one thing I love to do is dog on Norwegians. I talk so much crap about Norwegians. It is not even funny. The first time I heard Norwegian spoken to me, this drunk old person, I was going to use a particular word, but I'm not going to. This old drunk guy got up, just started mumbling all this stuff that I really don't understand. I really can't remember now. And, I think he tried to take a swing at me. I dodged and he fell down and he kept yelling at me in Norwegian. And I'm like, "Sir, are you having a stroke? Do you know what year it is? Who's the president of Norway?" I'm like, "What the hell am I talking about? Norway doesn't have a president." I thought this person was ill. Turns out, no, he wasn't mentally ill. He was just drunk and racist. I'm like, oh. To be fair, you don't get a lot of racist old white guys in Eritrea, so it was a bit of an experience for me.
Unfortunately, soon we need to end our conversation, but is there anything more you would like to add?
No, I just wanted to say one thing I like about it's my first podcast, and the one thing I like about this podcast is that it offers validation. It's not something we need to earn, but I think it validates our experiences as immigrants or expatriates living in Norway. As human beings, we seek validation. And I think for me, a lot of my experiences, especially when I was living in Drevland, I felt like I had to seek approval and validation from, for lack of a better term, ignorant rednecks. That's right, I said it. And in that search for validation, I endured so much abuse and disrespect. In hindsight, I regret that I went that far. And I think that's what a lot of people fail to understand. We don't need charity. We don't need a boost up. We just need people to understand that coming to Norway is not easy. Even if you have a support network, even if you have a spouse, even if you have the world's greatest job, living in Norway is an acquired experience. It's an acquired taste in the sense that it's not something that you sort of fall in love with right away. It has happened, and God bless those that have experienced it. But then for people like us, we make the effort to learn the language, to get jobs, to work in jobs that are outside of our area of expertise. But we do that because we are willing to do whatever it takes to become contributing members of society. So I think to a lot of people who are listening to this, we're not here to take your jobs. We're not here to enjoy your benefits. We're just here to make lives for ourselves. And the fact that we're willing to learn the language, to work hard, to endure all this, it should be a sign to you people about a sign of how much we want to be a part of this society. Because I'll be the first one to admit, Norway is a great place to live. But having said that, I shouldn't have to fight for my right to live here every damn day. Whether it's the current political system, whether it's societal norms and perspectives, whether it's just a couple of individuals with swastikas tattooed on their foreheads. I shouldn't have to constantly justify my presence in Norway. I'm here. I'm doing my part. Get out of my face.
This was the time just passed, or passing so fast. I really enjoyed listening your story, your thoughts. So unfortunately, we need to end. And I'm really grateful that you are here. Thank you very much for being our guests, and welcome again in Norwegian Newcomers family.
It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.